Joining me is filmmaker and journalist Ami Horowitz. Ami, you're a pundit who called this election weeks ago. You said Trump's going to win, he's going to win comfortably. You got it right. Where did it go so wrong for Kamala Harris?
You just said it, Kamala Harris. That's where it went wrong. I said it also for the beginning. If I can take a round, right, and run around and pat myself on the back. First of all, I want to really pat the real winner of tonight. Congratulations, Joe Biden. I know that he's sitting in his home, probably sleeping, but if he was awake, big old smile on Joe Biden's face. Yeah, that's the guy who really won this thing. Look, it was clear from the beginning that they were locked in. Right? Remember, we talked about it, like, who were they going to choose? Is it going to be Kamala? Look, of course it was going to be Kamala. There was no choice. DEI did them dirty. They were forced into picking a candidate who couldn't even come close to winning her own nomination. She had to jump out. She's one of the earliest people who jumped out in her own race. Of course she was going to lose. There was that sugar high because people were looking at anybody but Biden because of the self-immolation that took place on the debate stage, right? His clear deterioration physically and mentally. They needed anybody but him, and they chose the wrong person. But at the end of the day, here's the lesson that we learn. We can go through all the numbers you want and break down younger voters and older voters and female voters. You know what the one lesson is? You simply can't run against political headwinds. You can't run your boat into that maelstrom. And look, was Trump a good candidate? I was on this air saying over and over again, he was a terrible candidate. He ran the same exact race from the hip as he did in 2020, and he lost. The difference was the political headwinds in 2020 were against Trump. He was just coming out of COVID. The economy was suffering. It didn't matter that it wasn't his fault. The people felt that they had a problem in the country. They needed a change. The same goes now. He was running with the headwinds, right? And we've said it over and over again. At the end of the day, what does it come down to? You just look at the top issues that people care about. Every single poll showed the same thing. Economy, inflation, immigration. That's it. Abortion, and that's where he ran large leads. They dwindled toward the end, but he still held those leads fast. Abortion and democracy, which is what Kamala was running under, were 4 and 5. People didn't care. If they cared, certainly not as much as those other three. And ultimately, that's why she lost. Those were the issues that people cared about. It didn't matter. And look, I could even argue, I don't want a Monday morning quarterback for this thing, or in this case, a Wednesday morning quarterback for this thing. But look, even at the end, I could not understand why Trump was focusing on issues like trans issues. I get that it mattered to people, but this wasn't one of the top issues out there. Immigration, inflation, economy, end of story. That's the story of the entire election. Full stop.
Now, let's have a quick look at those all-important swing states, and you can see how Trump dominated there. He's winning or ahead in North Carolina, Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona. And when it comes to the Keystone State, Pennsylvania, he really has a very comfortable margin. Pennsylvania's been called for him. But I do wonder, Ami, whether it would be different if Kamala Harris had made a different choice when it came time to pick her VP, because she could have picked the very popular governor of Pennsylvania, Governor Shapiro. She chose not to. Again, we are considering what could have been. Was that a fatal error on her behalf? And why did she do that? The conjecture is that it's because Shapiro is Jewish, she served in the IDF, and she thought that that was going to antagonize segments of the Democrats' voter base. And it seems to be a fundamental error she made in this campaign.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it wasn't just about who she didn't pick, Josh Stein, but also who she did pick. Walt's a terrible choice. He leaned into all the issues that scared people about Kamala Harris. Was she, in fact, a closet leftist? Was she, in fact, somebody who had, socialist tendencies? These were all things that Walt said pretty publicly, and his record showed it too. Look, this morning, I've said before, Josh Stein was a fatal error. Was it enough to change the dynamics of the election? Probably not. I think he's winning in a larger way than we thought. I think this is all victories in the margin. These things aren't played on the margins, and certainly he would have played in her favor in the margins. I think with Pennsylvania in particular, I think it certainly would have been closer than it was, and maybe he would have won. Look, he's the most popular figure in Pennsylvania, more popular than Harris, more popular than Trump, more popular than the senators there. He is what the Democrats need to move towards, right? They have two choices now. They're at a crossroads. They can either double down and say, we weren't left enough, right? This is why we lost. We didn't move into our core values and our newer core values, which is not Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer no longer represent the core values of the Democratic Party. That's Rashida Tlaib. That's AOC. That's where the party has been moving toward. They're at a crossroads. They could either say, we need to actually double down because people didn't see us as authentic enough. They're looking at us and saying, well, I looked at Kamala Harris and at the end of the day, she was wishy-washy on all these issues, right? At the end of the day, she was saying, well, no, I stood against fracking, which is so important in Pennsylvania. But then she said, well, no, I'm actually for it. I'm not against it, not for it. Nobody can figure out where she was. And I think there are calls to the left already. You hear them saying early on, saying, yes, we didn't have fidelity to our important leftist values. Or they can move toward the center right to a Josh Shapiro. And I think those are elections they can win. We'll see what's going to happen. But no, it was a massive mistake, and you're seeing the results.
We are seeing the result, and we're seeing the black vote fracture for the Democrats, according to some exit polling conducted by NBC. And she also lost much of the Latino vote, particularly when it came to Latino men who voted for Biden over Trump, 59% to 36% just 4 years ago. But this time around, according to that NBC data, a massive 54% of Latino men voted for Trump, with 44% backing Harris. Why do you think this is, Ami? Is this just a matter of they care about the same issues that every other voter cares about? Or was it particularly the economy and the border that was energizing this voter base?
Yeah, here's a lesson, Democrats. Latinos aren't stupid, okay? You think they are. You treated them like they are. You treat them like they're people, same with the black vote. You treat them like people who just vote differently than everybody else. They're just different people, right? You Democrats and the media try to make the Hinckliffe joke a pivot point in this election, and that speaks so poorly of how you view Hispanic voters, right? To say like, hey, some random comedian that nobody really knows got on stage and made a dumb joke, and they tried to make that into something. And they really thought it did. Like they were really patting themselves on the back, saying, we may have turned the tide on the Latino vote because they're dumb. They don't get it, right? We can manipulate them into changing their mind. We can prod them and move them like cattle away from the important issues that everybody else cares about, namely immigration, inflation, and the economy. Turns out you can't. Turns out they know what they want. They're not dumb. You can't take a shiny object and flash it in their face, and they'll change their minds. Look, he is up. He won from 2020 to 2024. His increase, you gave the raw numbers, but it's a 41% increase in his percentage vote from 2020 to 2024. Think about that. Look, ultimately, and this is not a new trend. This is a trend we've been seeing for a while. This is not Trump was able to win their vote. This is the political headwinds I've been talking about. And not talking short-term headwinds, I'm talking long-term headwinds. Look, this immigration issue, the crisis that we have in immigration border is not new. This has been the Democratic playbook for years. Let's let in more Latino people in this country. You know why? Because they vote Democrat. Well, turns out, and again, I've been saying this for years also, this is going to be one of the greatest geopolitical mistakes ever made. Because, the first time when they come into the border, across the border, and they become citizens and they vote, they tend to vote Democrat because, you know, in their short-term interest, they're looking for handouts.
We've got to also distinguish between illegal and legal migrants, which is something the Democrats often forget to do as well. Ami Horowitz, thank you for your time tonight.